Revealed. How a homeless woman transformed a billionaire's perspective with 5 amazing languages. Clara huddled deeper into her tattered coat, the evening chill of Chicago creeping beneath the fabric. Beneath the towering steel and glass of the metropolis, she had found shelter under the bridge. A world where echoes of life buzzed above but forgotten souls lingered below. Immersed in silence, Clara often unraveled the words of discarded books, weaving together fragments of stories that mirrored her own. Her fingers grazed over the dog-eared pages, a refuge from the bitter reality that left her to fend for herself after her mother's illness had shattered their lives, forcing Clara from a promising career as a linguist to a haunting existence without a home. Yet amidst this bleakness, Clara cultivated an unwavering belief. Language could bind strangers, bridge gaps, and ignite hope. Each syntax she embraced conjured fragments of a colorful past, weighed against the daily struggle for survival. Her heart, a battleground of determination and despair, pulsed with the echo of dreams long lost. She grappled with her worth, questioning whether she had traded her aspirations for mere survival. As other homeless individuals drifted around her, Clara resisted the urge to view her existence as failure, clinging to the belief that her knowledge kept her anchored in a world that wanted to forget her. One fateful day at a local shelter, Clara's resilience collided with Tom's habitual indifference. Tom, a billionaire through sheer grit but hollow inside, had stumbled upon this unfamiliar world while volunteering, an uneasy attempt to assuage the prying eyes of critics who saw him as a puppet master of affluence. Risks were measured against ideals of connection and vulnerability, but as he approached Clara, his chest tightened. Her spirit resonated, igniting an awareness he had long buried under layers of wealth and distraction. 5 languages spilled out of her with conviction, a torrent of knowledge that left him questioning everything he thought he valued. Before they could even settle into a rhythm, Clara's recounting of her past pierced through Tom's self-constructed barriers. He marveled at how someone so seemingly displaced could harness such richness of spirit. It filled him with confusion, a gnawing fear that perhaps success was a mirage and that wealth, rather than empowering, forever shackled him to loneliness and shadow. The tables felt uneven. They shared a meal yet existed on 2 disparate planes. How could her scars illuminate his own hidden turmoil? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tom leaned forward, caught in the swell of thoughts crashing against his conscience like waves against the shore. Clara's raw truths pricked at insecurities he concealed, igniting a personal inferno that consumed him. Each story she told brought a fresh wave of anguish, juxtaposing her struggle with his superficial victories. Her laughter rang reminiscent of joy untainted by wealth, while his felt like hollow applause lingering in the silence of meaningless success. Could he ever scale the fortress of privilege surrounding him to connect with her heart? Just as he began to feel the gravity of his choices, chaos erupted nearby. A sudden fray drew attention, snapping Clara's focus and leaving Tom at a precipice of self-discovery. He stood at a crossroads. Would he help her reclaim the moment or retreat back into his plastic world, fearing the vulnerability it demanded? Her voice lingered in his mind, an anchor amidst a tempest of uncertainty. How could she, with so much loss, remind him of all he had sacrificed? Tom hesitated, torn between the weight of riches and the allure of genuine connection, suspended in the air, with Clara's story echoing painfully in his heart. Clara's thoughts churned as the chaos erupted around her. The fray was a stark reminder that, while she had honed her ability to rise above the noise, the world continued to rail against her existence. She could see Tom's brow furrowed with indecision, the internal battle playing out in the stormy depths of his eyes. Just moments earlier, they had shared a connection built on vulnerability, but now he seemed distanced, grappling with the weight of an unfamiliar reality. Tom, she said, her voice cutting through the tumult like a beacon. She dared to hope that he would push beyond the instinct to retreat. Help me. The plea hung in the air, palpable and urgent, pulling at the threads of his conscience. This was not a typical day for him. He was accustomed to making decisions wrapped in comfort, surrounded by determined professionals with their polished suits and flashcards of jargon. Here he was stripped bare, forced to confront unease he rarely acknowledged. Clara didn't need wealth or status. She needed someone to stand with her, to reaffirm that her voice mattered. Tom felt an unfamiliar urge stir within him, a longing to peel back the layers of a life crafted from a facade. Yet he hesitated, teetering on the brink of a significant leap forward. "What can I do?" he finally rasped, the vulnerability aching to break through his shield. "Start by seeing us," Clara replied, her gaze firm yet soft. "Not as projects or charity, but as people with stories and dreams." As the tumult subsided, the ambient noise became a distant murmur. Tom began to engage with those around them, immersing himself in their narratives. They were not just expressions of tragedy but tales of resilience, each individual echoing fragments of Clara's own journey. The more he listened, the more his perception shifted. Empathy began dismantling the fortress built over years of wealth and isolation. Meanwhile, Clara watched him traverse this landscape of redemption, a twinge of hope igniting within her. Each individual Tom interacted with offered a piece of wisdom or a viral laugh, reflecting a world she had believed lost. It awoke a dormant spark in her own spirit, an understanding that connection could flow freely, irrespective of financial standings or sheltered backgrounds. Tom's laughter rang genuine, resonating through the space that had felt so hollow just moments before. Clara began to realize that his transformation was beginning, not just for him, but as a potential catalyst for many others struggling against the tides of neglect. "I can help you organize conversations," she pitched dreamily, ignited by inspiration. Discussions that peel back prejudice, unearth courage, and set bridges between worlds. His eyes locked onto hers, apprehensive yet excited. The idea echoed in his mind: what if he harnessed his resources to create immersive experiences that fostered understanding? These were not lofty plans but tangible steps, possibilities shading the edges of their reality. Tom's mind raced, envisioning how he could gather people and voices, facilitate a shift in perspective that had held him captive. The passion grew palpable between them, weaving an unspoken pact of intention. This moment sparked an urgency, a mission to tether their worlds together through mutual understanding. But beneath the buoyancy of their aspirations lay impending doubts specific to each of their paths. Tom's corporate life threatened to starkly contrast with Clara's raw insights. Clara feared she might hold the world's respect only if she reverted to invisibility. As they shared this ambitious vision, reality pressed in on them. What faced them were not only their dreams, but the relentless challenges that accompanied action. Would they venture forward, risking everything that came with defying expectation? The atmosphere thickened with tension, a future laden with potential yet shadowed by personal insecurities weighed heavily. The moment felt electrifying yet fragile, teetering on the cusp of transformation. With each heartbeat resonating within them, Clara posed a question that might forge either connection or disconnect in their newfound partnership. "What happens when the facade cracks, Tom? Are you prepared to face what lies beneath?" As his response loomed, Clara suddenly felt the stakes rise, teasing an unseen depth to their pursuits, one that threatened to lay bare everything they hoped to conceal. Clara's heart raced as she awaited Tom's response, the air thick with unspoken fears. She sensed the gravity of their moment, the way his hesitation mirrored her own internal struggles. What would it cost him to embrace her truth? And at what cost to her would he dare breach the walls he'd built? Each unguarded breath hung between them, fragile yet charged with possibility. Tom's brow knitted tighter as he grappled with her challenging question. He had lived a life grounded in certainty, defined by expectations his own as well as those imposed upon him. Years in a corporate environment had fine-tuned his instincts for navigating safely within a world of status and privilege. Yet, the sobering reality surrounding Clara and the others lingered in his mind, imploring him to break away from the confines of his familiar reality. His heart began to race, resonating with eagerness that drowned out the familiar fears of judging eyes and scorn. He started, his voice faltering as he parked his gaze on the pavement, preferring the cracked surface to Clara's penetrating stare. His thoughts clawed at his resolve, raking away layers of denial. What would happen if he chose to shed his status in favor of true connection? "I guess I worry about the consequences. What if I don't know the right thing to say?" Clara tilted her head, her eyes softening with understanding. No one knows how to navigate this perfectly, she replied gently. It's about honesty. Those connecting conversations will emerge from vulnerability, a willingness to share and listen without a script. Her words anchored him, lighting a spark of resolve. But doubt, like a shadow, slithered back into the corners of his mind. Could he muster the courage to expose himself? Doubts haunted him, whispering that his efforts could fall flat. But as he glanced at Clara, her unwavering determination sparking a fierce light within her, the resolve began to swell. What if I asked you to help me? Tom said suddenly, surprising himself. We could host an event not just as a meeting but as a dialogue. A safe space where everyone's stories matter. That way, I don't just lecture but learn alongside everyone, co-create this experience with you and others. Clara studied him carefully, assessing how his proposal danced between fear and excitement. A dialogue that's more empowering than just an event, she agreed, her thoughts racing with the implications. A chance for shared voices, a vibrant collage of narratives coming together. Nevertheless, it felt like a vast undertaking. Would that mean I have to face people? Tom inquired, suddenly wary of the growing ambition. The image of stepping outside his pristine office into a world rife with struggles painted his mind, a terrifying juxtaposition of his familiar and the unknown. Yes, Clara said firmly, her conviction piercing through his uncertainties. It's essential for growth. We need to stand together, to acknowledge both cultures, the wealth and the struggle, to exchange perspectives that define our realities. But it can't be just you, Tom. You need to involve others, challenge them to listen too. As they mulled over the dimensions of their ideas, Clara felt a renewed sense of purpose igniting within her. They were crafting a platform for connection, an authentic channel for growth, stripped of pretense. Yet fear lingered. Could they truly inspire change? Doubt curled around those questions like ivy, summoning the specter of previous failures. Her hope flickered as she sensed Tom's growing trepidation. This won't be easy. Will you face the challenge of being exposed, Tom? Your credibility is at stake. I have to, he answered resolutely. But what does that look like? How do we even begin? Her heart leapt at his commitment, but Clara knew they would face steep challenges in their pursuit. Let us start by reaching out to those who might help us, people who have walked this journey. Then we can determine a plan together. The moment lingered like a breath held in suspense, both aware that they were at the precipice of something transformative. Yet the winding path of vulnerability was still shadowed by questions that loomed on the horizon. Would Tom's corporate allies support his endeavor or dismantle it beneath the scrutiny of his past? And for Clara, was she ready to showcase her voice, risking exposure to the very judgment she feared? As these thoughts crowded her mind, a new inquiry surged within, teasing the edges of their alliance. What if we failed to connect? She wondered, and the weight of that uncertainty hung heavily, threatening to drag them down. Then we try again, Tom replied, his voice steady yet laden with the weight of their undertaking. But deep inside, both knew that the real challenge lay not in the logistics, but in confronting their own fears and forging a partnership strong enough to withstand the external pressures. Another question pressed at the back of Clara's mind, one that shifted the ground beneath her resolve. What if, once the facade cracks, we don't recognize what's underneath? Clara and Tom lingered in the charged silence, the weight of impending action resting heavily between them. Tom's jaw tightened, and Clara could see the battle within, a clash between comfort and growth. The stark realization of what lay ahead began creeping into their thoughts, each minute ticking towards an uncertain future. Let us make a list of people we could reach out to, Clara suggested, her voice an attempt to anchor them both in practicality while fighting off the tide of her anxiety. She felt the sharp prickle of vulnerability. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her phone, tapping on the Notes app with a mixture of purpose and fear. Tom nodded, regaining focus. We need to think of those who can speak to their experiences candidly and authentically. And we'll need people from diverse backgrounds. His mind began racing with names, some familiar, some intimidating. He had spent his career maneuvering through the business landscape, but this was a different game altogether. His instincts for negotiation and strategy felt somewhat inadequate when stripped of the armor of his corporate role. I can reach out to a few contacts who work in outreach programs, Clara offered, her mind spinning, seeking even the tiniest glimpse of confidence. Maybe they can introduce us to individuals willing to share their stories. Good, and I can talk to my team, Tom added, though an undercurrent of apprehension slithered through his plan. Part of him felt exposed this would require them to shift from the familiar binary of employer-employee relations to a delicate dance of shared experience. Would his colleagues understand his motivations? Would they dismiss his efforts as naive? As their brainstorming session progressed, Clara's excitement began to clash violently with her doubt. Nature had bestowed a fierce passion upon her to bridge divides, but it was tethered by the fear of personal rejection. What if her efforts fell flat? What if the stories they couched in hope met a wall of indifference? What's the worst that could happen? Tom's question broke through her spiral of self-doubt, cutting through the clouds of uncertainty. We learn something about ourselves in the process, right? True, Clara murmured, almost reluctantly. But what if I expose myself and no one cares? What if they ignore what I share or simply don't relate to it? The flicker of despair tightened in her chest, and she fought to pull herself from it. It's not about whether they care, she argued, more to herself than to Tom. It's about whether I can make my voice count. These stories need to be told. Then tell them, Tom urged, leaning closer. Prepare yourself to step outside of comfort. If we falter, let us celebrate the courage it took just to enter this space. The sincerity in his voice soothed her fears momentarily, reminding her why they had begun this in the first place. It wasn't about accolades or recognition, but about creating an authentic conversation where myriad experiences could converge. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, and she hesitated before checking it, an invitation from her old network that brought back a rush of memories. But it wasn't he shared with Tom. Instead, she felt a surge of reluctance to bring him into a past riddled with complexities. Could he accept her journey as a part of what they were building? Would he truly want to know her fully? Clara. He watched her face shift, sensing the internal struggle. I had just received something, she stammered, her voice wavering as doubt encircled her thoughts once more. It's not important. Does it concern our plan? His eyes pierced through her facade, startling her. Something like that, she said, unwilling to expose the deeper shadows of her history just yet. In the silence that followed, Tom weighed his choices, his hands clenched under the table, and Clara sensed that he too was at a crossroads. Both of them teetered precariously against vulnerability, the fear of their pasts looming as shadows that threatened to overshadow the potential of what lay ahead. Let us not hide, Tom finally said, the resolve building in his tone. This isn't just about the dialogue. It's about being real, authentically ourselves. The urgency swelled within her, a feeling of palpable threat. Would they find strength in exposing the truths they wanted to conceal? Or would their vulnerabilities unwittingly dismantle their ambitions? The question whirred in the back of her mind, tightening the air around them. But how will we know what we discover together? Clara thought aloud, anxiety lacing her words. Then we see what the next step demands of us, Tom replied, the conviction in his voice radiating an uncharacteristic bravery that she hadn't anticipated. With the balance of their honesty hanging palpably in the air, Clara realized that both their futures hinged upon the choices they made in the days to come. And while fears loomed large, the promise of discovery shadowed the horizon. As they prepared to take their first steps into the unknown, a pulse of possibility surged within Clara. The challenge pushed her forward, but also buried deep within was another nagging fear. If they succeeded, would they be ready for what it would reveal about themselves, their deepest fears, desires, and failings? The moment of truth began to take shape, and with it a gnawing anticipation welled up. What if we uncover things better left buried? Clara wondered, the tension propelling her onward despite the uncertainties. Clara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of anticipation urging her on. This moment was no longer just about the list they were drafting. It was about dismantling the barriers that surrounded them, both the silent fears that paraded as convictions and the truths they buried for comfort. Let us start with people we already know, Tom suggested, his tone steady but charged with caution. He pulled out a pen and began jotting down names on the notepad they pushed to the center of the table, drawing a faint line between the professional and personal. We can build a foundation with those we trust. Clara felt a spark of determination. Right, those whose stories resonate with us. We could frame our outreach as a way to learn to grow together. The tremor beneath her words began to settle, replaced by a sensible seriousness as they navigated the contours of their mission. Company colleagues, community leaders, and old mentors occupied the initial list, faces both familiar and oddly distant. Yet, Clara's mind drifted back to the invitation she'd received. It was more than a message, it was a tether to her former self. When was the last time she felt the tug of nostalgia draw her back to a world that felt familiar yet alien? Ignoring it now felt impossible. Clara. Tom's voice tugged her fully into the present. What's going on in your head? She hesitated, her throat tightening. I received a message from my old network. They want to connect again. It was half true. The unfiltered chaos of memories, the messy relationships, the stale grievances never truly left her. But the surface had grown impenetrable. Isn't that a good thing? He asked, his brows furrowed. Rekindling connections might lead to unexpected opportunities, right? His optimism sparked a flicker of hope, but it was quickly swallowed by the weight of trepidation. It's complicated, Tom. I left that world for a reason. I'm afraid that diving back in could expose me to vulnerabilities I thought I had outgrown. The contrast between her past and present hung heavy, a reminder of the person she had tried to leave behind. As she glanced at the list, a nagging thought flared up. Was this what transparency truly demanded? Was she ready to peel back layers that had taken years to fortify? Tom studied her, the concern in his eyes morphing into an understanding that felt almost tangible. Clara, we're all unearthing things about ourselves. If you think this connection could help, then we need to confront it. You deserve to reclaim those parts of your journey. She felt a rush of warmth from his words, the way he urged her toward self-exploration. In that moment, she realized that growth required engagement with all aspects of oneself, even the uncomfortable segments that she thought best forgotten. What if I embarrass myself? She blurted out, a youthful edge to her vulnerability. What if they don't accept the person I've become? Tom responded with a steady gaze. Then we frame our discomfort as part of our story. Everyone has their battles. It's about embracing the imperfect journey that shapes us. The thought took root, reverberating within her. Clara picked up the pen, her hand steadier now as she added names of people who had witnessed her evolution both in the past and present. Each name felt like a bridge, a pathway toward reconciliation, rather than a return to a lost past. It's time to reach out, she declared, the conviction in her voice now ringing with newfound strength. Each word bore the weight of determination, the idea of revisiting her roots transforming from a burden into a liberated choice. As Clara leaned into this emerging confidence, Tom's phone buzzed, signaling an incoming call. His expression shifted into concern as he read the screen. It's my team. I have to take this, he said, his demeanor serious. Remember, it's about being real even if that means facing our fears together. Watching him step away, Clara absorbed the gravity of their exchanges. Could they both navigate the revealing currents of their pasts without losing themselves to the memories? With a new list, brimming with potential faces, Clara's heart swelled with a mixture of dread and hope. She realized transformation was rarely linear. It doubled back upon itself with complications. And now, as she prepared to connect with her past while steering into an unfamiliar future, the undercurrent of her old life lingered, awaiting to collide with her present. Ripe with uncertainty, Clara's mind raced, carrying an undeniable urgency. What truths lay dormant within those connections? Would they illuminate her growth or overshadow it completely? As the call continued a few feet away, Clara knew she faced more than a mere outreach. She was on the brink of revisiting her entire narrative. But the true question loomed. Were they brave enough to excavate the buried truths together? Or would the tides of their pasts pull them under once more? Clara's thoughts spun in circles, battling the uncertainty that clung to her like a shroud. As Tom moved further away, engaged in his call, she leaned back in her chair, allowing the surroundings to fade into a blur. She was alone in a crowded space, the hum of conversation wrapping around her while her mind wandered through the clutter of her history. Here she was, ready to reach out yet paralyzed by the very notion of connection. The faces of her past began to emerge like flickering film reels. She could see the playful laughter of her college friends, the intense discussions with mentors, and even the fallout from a toxic partnership that had left scars she hadn't quite recognized until now. Each interaction was a thread in the tapestry of her life, but she was no longer certain if they would strengthen or unravel her current fabric. She took a deep breath. The fear niggled at her incessantly. Would they see the growth she had fought for, or simply the shadows of who she once was? Self-doubt loomed, but she tried to grapple with it, steering her mind toward the possibilities ahead. Perhaps it was time to embrace the entirety of her journey, not just the polished versions of her successes. With resolve once more rising within her, Clara shifted her focus to the notepad. She could feel the weight of the pen, now warm between her fingers, as if it sensed her resolve. What was it about this simple act of writing names that made her feel like she was carving out her future? Each name would represent not just a connection but a potential exploration, a chapter she could reframe in her narrative. She started to write down the colleagues she respected but hadn't spoken to in years. Patricia, whose integrity had always inspired Clara, Marco, who had challenged her to think differently, and a few others whose lessons lingered like whispers urging her forward. Names flowed onto the paper as if unearthing hidden wells of support and wisdom. A thought struck her: what if each of these conversations became less about her fears and more about shared experiences? She began to envision asking them not only about their lives but also about their growth journeys. After all, vulnerability bred connection. Could their stories reveal reflections of her own? Just as this realization coalesced, Tom returned to her side, the tension of his earlier call dissipating. "Everything okay?" he asked, curiosity in his voice. "I think I'm ready to reconnect," she replied, newfound steadiness rippling through her. Not just to reach out but to really listen to their stories. Maybe that's the key, honoring what we've all been through. Tom's smile was a brimming source of encouragement. That's an incredible approach. It's about mutual growth, isn't it? You never know what they might share that could help you too. Clara's heart quickened at the thought. This was not just about her. It was about shared vulnerabilities, a mutual excavation of truths that could bridge the gaps of their past. The connection could morph into something transformative, a cycle of empowerment. Yet, beneath the glow of her renewed conviction lay a flicker of trepidation. What if those old wounds revisited her with a vengeance? What if she faced rejection or unearthed discomfort that left her exposed? Was she truly ready for this level of transparency? The internal dialogue intensified, a competing chorus of hope and apprehension. "Shall we start with Patricia or Marco?" Tom asked, oblivious to the turmoil in her mind yet eagerly committed to their task. His question hung in the air, heavy with potential. Clara's thumb reflexively brushed over the name she had penned, her fingers lingering on the one that felt both safe and risky. Patricia. Her old mentor had always encouraged candid conversations. Taking a steadying breath, she declared, "Let us reach out to Patricia first." As she prepared to draft the message, apprehension morphed into focus. Each word would resonate with intention, a blend of past fears and future aspirations, a commitment to discover what lay beyond the boundaries of her comfort. Clara's hand hovered momentarily over the screen, ready to initiate the message that could change everything. In that moment, she wondered, how would Patricia react to the woman Clara had become? Would she even recognize her? Insistent curiosity dawned on her. The crossroads was now indisputably clear. Openness included the risk of discomfort, and embracing it might summon unexpected revelations. But deep within her, another question emerged, stirring a trepidation that tied her stomach in knots. Would they be able to uncover something hidden in the shadows, or would they illuminate wounds better left untouched? As she finally pressed send, Clara stood on the precipice of transformation, but only time would reveal if the plunge would lift her higher or drown her in the past once more. Clara's heart raced as she watched the message dissolve into the ether. Each tick of the clock felt monumental, marking the seconds she spent waiting for an uncertain response. The cafe, a once comfortable sanctuary, now felt suffocating, the walls closing in with the weight of her vulnerability. In this stark moment of exposure, she grappled with a mixture of hope and dread. It was a crucial threshold, and clarity felt elusive. Tom sipped his coffee, momentarily distracted, but Clara's mind buzzed with the tension of potential outcomes. A flurry of what-ifs invaded her thoughts. What if Patricia didn't respond? What if she rejected Clara's tentative reach? A negativity spiral threatened to ensnare her motivation, but Clara fought to remind herself of their history. Patricia had always believed in her, had guided her when she felt lost. That spark of encouragement weighed heavily on her decision. Do you think she'll remember me? Clara's voice came out softer than intended. She didn't want Tom to misinterpret her vulnerability as weakness. Well, she doesn't seem the kind to forget those who she's mentored, he replied, leaning back with an easy smile. You've got this. She'll see how far you've come. The conviction in Tom's voice was a buoy amid her rising tide of doubt. But while he remained a supportive presence, Clara recognized that this journey was hers to navigate alone. It demanded not only courage but also the readiness to face potential rejection, head-on, a lesson she had learned through the disappointments of her past. As the minutes bled into an eternity, her phone pinged, shattering her focus. Clara quickly glanced down, the mix of apprehension and hope igniting her pulse. It was from Patricia. Before she opened the message, her thoughts raced. Would it be a hesitant acknowledgement or an open invitation for dialogue? Clara bit her lip, holding her breath as she tapped the notification. Hi Clara. It's been such a long time. I hope you're doing well. I'd love to catch up. How about lunch next week? The relief surged through her like a tide, washing away the fears she had nurtured. Clara read the words multiple times, allowing herself to breathe deeply. Patricia's warmth emanated from the screen, a beacon beckoning her toward reconnection. Confidence began to reshape her outlook. This exchange could be more than just a conversation. It was a chance to glean insight into the life paths they had traversed. She had created a space for growth, planting seeds in a once untouched fertile ground. Clara approved the lunch plan with a message affirming her enthusiasm. The anticipation hummed within her, mingling with an unusual excitement and energy she had not felt in too long. As she set her phone down, she contemplated what she wanted to learn from this impending reunion. What wisdom could Patricia share that would illuminate her own continued path? Clara jotted down some questions, allowing her thoughts to coalesce into actionable steps. What had changed since their last encounter? What were the lessons learned from her mistakes? She needed to harness this energy effectively. In the days leading up to their lunch, Clara immersed herself in introspection. She examined her journey since she had left Patricia's mentorship, pinpointing personal triumphs and failures. Each reflection was an opportunity to appreciate her growth, silencing the self-doubt that had long haunted her. The day arrived and Clara prepared meticulously, donning an outfit that both empowered her and referenced her past with casual elegance. She wanted to convey that while her struggles shaped her, they no longer defined her. During the meal, Clara found herself engaging in a profound discussion about resilience with Patricia. Each story they shared became a shared tapestry of experiences, illuminating parts of themselves previously hidden in shadows, clarifying how both had transformed. But deep within Clara, a pulse of anxiety remained. Would Patricia view her journey as a success or merely a facade for underlying issues? As she forged a deeper connection with her mentor, she sensed that they were treading into psychological territory that could lead to fruitful revelations or stark confrontations with uncomfortable truths. What hidden facets of her identity awaited discovery in the depths of this reunion? What might emerge that could shift Clara's perspective once again? The path ahead was murky, but a restless anticipation pushed against the confines of her mind, as if urging her to dig deeper into both her past and her present and to confront what lay below the surface. The atmosphere of the cafe buzzed with a familiar rhythm, but to Clara it felt electric. As she and Patricia perused their meals, the world around them faded, leaving just the two of them in a cocoon of shared narratives. Clara sensed that this gathering was not merely a rekindling of an old friendship. It was a moment poised at the precipice of transformation. Patricia, with her poised demeanor and sharp insights, had always carried an air of authority. Yet today that authority felt more personal, almost equalized by Clara's evolving confidence. The questions Clara had prepared circled through her mind like moths seeking light. Some needed to be asked, and others doubled as a mirror for her own truths. Clara, tell me about the path you've taken after we last spoke, Patricia began, her tone inviting. Clara felt the weight of those words, a chance to narrate her evolution. She leaned in, her voice steadying with purpose. I left the security of my old job, she admitted, obliquely referencing a pivotal moment in her life. I needed to challenge myself more, to confront my fear of failure rather than allowing it to hold me back. Patricia's eyebrows raised slightly, her gaze piercing into Clara's eyes. That takes courage. And what did you find on that path? Amid that inquiry, Clara could feel the tension crackling like static in the air. This was more than a simple discussion. It was an opportunity to peel back layers of her identity, revealing scars both tender and healed. I realize that failure isn't the end, it's a teacher, she replied, drawing from the well of her recent experiences. Each setback has fueled my determination. I learned to embrace the discomfort of uncertainty. A nod of understanding from Patricia confirmed that Clara's transformation resonated. But even as that validation washed over her, Clara harbored a gnawing insecurity. Was she truly worthy of this newfound strength? The root of her self-doubt lingered like a shadow, always lurking. And what about your journey inward? Patricia pressed, this time with a shimmer of curiosity rather than authority. Clara hesitated for a heartbeat before proceeding. I've also been reassessing what success means to me, she confessed, feeling more exposed with each word. It's not just about professional achievements. It's about emotional resilience and authenticity. Clara could see Patricia considering her response, and for a fleeting moment, she worried that perhaps she had sounded self-indulgent, yet every fiber of her being urged her to remain vulnerable. That's a profound realization, said Patricia, maintaining eye contact. It's essential to define success on your own terms. Clara took a breath, eager to redirect the conversation towards Patricia. What about you? How have you navigated your own challenges? Patricia's smile deepened, but her expression grew contemplative. You know, it's easy to project confidence, but behind that facade, we often struggle with our own doubts. Clara noticed a flicker of something, an admission that hinted at dramatic truths Patricia had perhaps avoided sharing previously. As they dove deeper into their dialogue, it felt as if the table they shared was a bridge connecting two eras of their lives. Clara sensed emotions shifting in the air, an invisible current binding them, urging her to confront the nagging question that loomed beneath the surface. Had the time finally come to address her fears openly? A push surged from within, driving her towards a risk she had avoided for too long. Patricia, apart from resilience, I've been wanting to ask, what do you do when the past haunts your present? How do you unpack it while still moving forward? Patricia's expression turned serious, the fabric of their conversation tightening around them. Clara's heart hitched, realizing she had invited Patricia into a realm of raw honesty, potentially testing not only her mentor but herself in a way that was both unsettling and necessary. What would Patricia reveal that could illuminate Clara's precarious journey? And importantly, could confronting these shared struggles forge an even deeper bond? Or would they uncover irrevocable differences that pulled them apart? Patricia leaned back, the tension palpable in the air between them. Clara's heart raced as she awaited an answer, commanding her own breathing to stay calm despite the storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. The question hung between them like a tightrope, testing their balance in a precarious exchange. Unpacking the past, Patricia began, her voice steady but tinged with vulnerability, is an ongoing practice for me. I've come to understand that whatever we've been through, good or bad, shapes us, but it doesn't have to define us. Learning to accept that has been my greatest challenge. Clara noted the gravitas in Patricia's tone, an admission that shattered the previously solid facade of certainty. As a mentor, Clara had always viewed Patricia as an unshakable pillar of strength. Yet now Clara saw raw honesty, an invitation to explore their shared vulnerabilities. What specifically helped you to let go? Clara asked, her curiosity piqued, longing to know how someone she admired could wrestle with the shadows of their past. Patricia placed a hand over her heart. It was through acknowledgement and reflection, but also through actions that spoke louder than my fears. I started documenting my thoughts, my fears, my triumphs in a journal. Writing became a form of therapy. She paused, gazing into her cup as if the remnants of the coffee held answers. There's power in pinning down our stories, Clara. It brings clarity, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths. This insight struck Clara with forceful resonance. She had always imagined journaling as a tedious chore, but perhaps it was more than that. It could be a tool for healing, for uncovering the layers of her existence. The thought ignited a flicker of inspiration within her. I've never tried that, she admitted, her mind racing with possibilities about what secrets lay buried in her own consciousness. Do you think you could? Patricia encouraged, raising her gaze, challenging Clara's burgeoning resolve. What if you discovered insights about yourself that you've been afraid to face? Clara's breath hitched at the thought. The idea of confronting her own past felt daunting, but the prospect of gaining clarity was intoxicating. It could be the catalyst she needed for growth, a way to confront her deepest fears and insecurities without the weight of direct confrontation. Just as she was spiraling into self-doubt, Clara felt an unexpected surge of determination. "I think I could," she responded, her voice firmer than before. Patricia's approving smile was almost palpable, radiating warmth and encouragement. Yet deep down uncertainty lingered. How would she begin? What would she even say to herself? Yet the thought of not trying felt far worse than the unknown journey ahead. "And as you face those uncertainties," Patricia continued, "remember, it's not just about navigating your fears. It's learning to transform them into strengths." Clara nodded, her focus sharpening. She was ready to confront the past not as a victim but as a learner, willing to unearth the buried fragments of her identity. As they continued to exchange thoughts and experiences, the conversation propelled them ever closer to the heart of authenticity. Clara sensed a shift within her, an awakening. The barriers she had built were beginning to crumble with each sharing. But as the dialogue deepened, she couldn't help but sense that a pivotal moment was approaching, one that could either fortify her evolving identity or unleash her lingering doubts. "So tell me, Patricia," Clara ventured, "what happens when you dive deep and confront those truths, but they unveil something unexpected? Something that shakes your foundation?" The inquiry hung heavily in the air, layering their conversation with new complexities and the implicit challenge that awaited them. Clara dreaded what may lurk within those unexplored truths, but could ignoring them allow her to truly evolve? Patricia's expression evolved into one of contemplation, as they both steeled themselves for the anxious revelations that lay ahead. Clara's journey was about to reach another intersection. She just hoped she wouldn't lose her way in the dark of self-discovery. Would she dare to tread into the unknown to unearth not only her hidden strengths, but also the truths that could shift the very foundation of who she believed herself to be? Clara's journey had reached a vital crossroads. The time spent with Patricia had unlocked a fortitude within her, a burgeoning recognition of the beauty in vulnerability. The lunch had transcended a simple catch-up. It was an awakening of self-awareness and honesty that shook her core. The fortified barriers she had built began to feel less like protection and more like shackles holding her back from self-discovery. After their meal, she sat in her small apartment, reflecting on their conversation. The cozy but cluttered space felt stifling, yet her mind was alight with clarity. Patricia's insights echoed, revealing paths previously hidden. With a surge of newfound confidence, Clara pulled out her journal, the same one that had lain untouched for months. It felt like an invitation to her own inner sanctum, demanding deep engagement. She opened to a fresh page, letting the pen hover over the lined paper, the ink tethering her thoughts to her truth. This was not merely a task. Clara saw it as a pact she made with herself, a commitment to confront fears unflinchingly. It would be a dialogue with her past, moving beyond self-recrimination. What had once seemed like lost time was morphing into a series of lessons etched in the very fabric of her being. With restless fingers she began to write. Words flowed like an unpolished river, the ink spilling secrets that felt forgotten. She recounted her dreams before she lost her home, her aspirations of linguistic mastery. Each stroke of the pen gave voice to shadows she had kept buried, a strengths examination wrapped in vulnerability. Failure, she realized, had not been a stop sign, but a signpost leading her toward rediscovery. Days turned into weeks, and with each written entry, Clara was reminded of her power to confront and redefine her narrative. The act of journaling became more than mere reflection. It evolved into a practice that anchored her identity, revealing insights about resilience and growth she had barely recognized. The transition was palpable. She documented not just her struggles but the strength born from them, painting a fuller picture of the woman she had become. Simultaneously, Tom's journey unfolded alongside hers. Clara watched as he transformed his corporate ethos. His vulnerability became an artifact of change, shattering his previous perceptions of wealth and connection. Conversations grew richer as he delved deeper into understanding the narratives of those around him, cultivating empathy instead of replicating detachment. Tom organized weekly gatherings, using his privilege to foster spaces where real, human stories flourished, bridging the gap between their disparate worlds. In the heart of those events, Clara found her voice an essential piece of the puzzle. Guided by her own evolution, she facilitated discussions focused on shared resilience, weaving the threads of their experiences into a tapestry that showcased the strength of the human spirit. Encouragement rippled through the room, transforming struggle into empowerment as individuals shared their journeys unencumbered by shame. One evening, standing at the front of their latest gathering filled with colleagues, friends, and new acquaintances, Clara took a deep breath. Every heartbeat synced with the energy bubbling beneath the surface. The significance of this moment pulsed through her, saturated with fulfillment. She had achieved something meaningful not only for herself but for others, who had joined her in celebrating the beauty of storytelling. As the last recounts faded away, applause surrounded her, but it felt more like acknowledgement than validation. The real credit belonged to each shared story, the resilience revealed within vulnerability, a profound connection that now anchored their collective intention. Clara beamed, understanding that this was her reward. She had accomplished more than just creating a space for dialogue. Through embracing her voice, she had fostered a community, each participant echoing a collective courage that sparked transformations well beyond their initial intentions. Out of the depths of her challenges, she had proven herself, no longer merely a survivor but a key architect of heartfelt connections. With the gathering concluded, Clara stepped outside to the crisp evening air, heart swelling. She knew she had conquered her fears, and with unwavering recognition of her intrinsic worth, Clara now stood resolute, confident, and fulfilled. As she walked through the vibrant streets, illuminated by the glow of city lights, she felt lighter, empowered beyond measure. The journey ahead promised not just growth but a celebration of shared humanity, stories intertwined so beautifully they'd enrich countless lives, including her own. Clara had transformed, heart and soul. She was no longer merely a shadow of her former self but a vibrant contributor to the world around her. As this chapter came to a close, she understood that true achievement stemmed from embracing all facets of herself, an unending commitment to growth, connection, and authenticity. The music of life swelled around her. She felt alive, ready for whatever the future would bring. Now, dear audience, this is your moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like immediately to feed the algorithm and help others discover their transformative journeys. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to hear about Clara's incredible journey of overcoming adversity. Don't wait even one more second. Your engagement is the lifeblood that ignites our storytelling mission.